I was sitting in the waiting room at the dentist's office when my phone rang. It was my only son, David. His voice sounded different, almost businesslike, as he said, "Mom, Jessica and I are moving to Seattle next week. We already sold your mountain cabin in Dad's workshop. We deposited your share in your account. You're 66 now. It's time you moved into an assisted living facility. We found a nice place. Bye." And he hung up, just like that. 40 years of raising him, sacrificing everything for his education, and he discarded me like an outdated piece of furniture. But I took a deep breath and smiled, because there was something my dear son didn't know. My name is Margaret Hayes. I'm 66 years old, and until that moment, I thought I knew my son. I had become a widow 9 months ago. My husband Thomas had passed away from a stroke while working in his beloved workshop behind our house. That morning, I had brought him coffee and a sandwich, just as I had done every Saturday for 42 years. He had kissed my cheek and said, "Thank you, Maggie. You're my sunshine." Those were his last words. Since then, David had been calling more often, or so I believed. He checked in twice a week, asked about my health, and even helped me sort through Thomas's belongings. He suggested I see a financial advisor because, "Mom, you need to be smart about your future now that you're alone." His wife, Jessica, would send cheerful texts asking how I was doing. I thought they cared. But now I understood it was all reconnaissance. The mountain cabin had been our sanctuary for 35 years. Thomas and I bought it when David was just 8 years old, using every penny we had saved. Every summer, we'd drive up there for 2 weeks. David would go fishing with his father in the morning, and I'd make blueberry pancakes on the old wood stove. Thomas built the deck himself, adding a swing where we'd sit and watch the sunset over the pine trees. David brought his high school girlfriends there, then Jessica after they started dating. I would cook family dinners, do everyone's laundry, and make sure everyone was happy. It was our tradition. I never imagined he'd see it as nothing more than a real estate transaction. And Thomas's workshop, that sacred space where my husband had spent 30 years building furniture for our family and friends, the smell of sawdust and wood stains still clung to everything in there. His reading glasses were still on the workbench, his favorite hammer hanging on the wall. David knew what that workshop meant to me. It was the last place Thomas had been alive. But apparently, convenience and money mattered more than memories. When he hung up, I sat there in that sterile waiting room with its beige walls and outdated magazines, surrounded by people with toothaches, and for the first time in months, I didn't cry. Something changed inside me, a clarity I hadn't felt since Thomas's death, because in that moment, I remembered something I had completely forgotten. 5 days before he died, Thomas had given me a thick manila envelope. "Maggie," he said, looking more serious than usual, "put this in your safe. If something happens to me, open it when you're ready. But only when you feel strong enough." I had tucked it away, and with all the chaos of the funeral, the grief, the endless paperwork, I simply forgot about it. But it was there, waiting for me at home. The dental hygienist called my name. I went in, got my teeth cleaned, nodded at all the right moments, but my mind was miles away. I was thinking about that envelope, about the coldness in David's voice, about how Jessica was probably behind all of this. She had never liked me. She always looked at me as if I were an inconvenient obstacle to their perfect life. I had tried so hard to be a good mother-in-law, but nothing was ever enough for her. I left the office and walked slowly to the bus stop. I no longer had a car, according to David. He said he'd sold it because at your age, Mom, it's dangerous for you to drive. How thoughtful. But as I waited for the bus, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of anticipation. My son thought he had left me helpless. But what he didn't know was that Thomas, my brilliant Thomas, had always been a man who planned 3 steps ahead. The bus arrived and I sat by the window, watching the city pass by. All these people rushing to their destinations, each carrying their own secrets, their own betrayals. I had mine too. And I was about to discover just how deep they ran. When I got home, I went straight to the safe in our bedroom closet. There it was, the thick manila envelope with my name written in Thomas's neat handwriting. My hands trembled as I pulled it out. I could feel multiple documents inside, something heavy. I sat on the bed we had shared for over 4 decades, the bed where we had laughed, argued, made up, and dreamed together. I took a deep breath and opened the envelope. What I found inside made me gasp. Legal documents, property deeds, stock certificates, and a handwritten letter from Thomas. My eyes filled with tears as I read his familiar handwriting. My dearest Maggie, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I never told you everything while I was alive, but I wanted to protect you from worry. Over the years, I invested the money from my furniture business and your teaching salary. We don't just have the cabin, we own the entire property development around it. 12 vacation homes, all rented out year-round. We also own the building where David's company has its offices. And, my love, I started a tech company 15 years ago with my workshop patents. It's called Hayes Innovations. We manufacture precision tools for aerospace engineering. The company is now worth $8 million. You are the majority shareholder and CEO. You've always been rich in spirit, Maggie, but now you're rich on paper too. I had to read it 3 times before it sank in.
And those 2 months taught me something those people will never learn. You can lose your house, your marriage, your daughter's respect, but you can't lose your value. Because value isn't given by other people. It's created by the work you do when no one's applauding. The electromagnetic research I did in 1984 is still classified in parts, still protecting pilots, still saving lives. Catherine's political career is over. Jennifer's working to rebuild what she helped destroy.
Thomas had been modest our entire marriage, and I never questioned it. We lived comfortably but simply. Now I understood why. In the letter, Thomas explained that he had kept it all secret because he didn't want David to know about our wealth. You know our son Maggie. He's always taken the easy path. If he knew we had money, he'd never work hard for anything. I wanted him to build his own life, earn his own success. But now that I'm gone, I trust you to use these resources wisely. Teach him what I couldn't. With all my love, forever yours, Thomas. The irony was stunning. Our son had just sold my property, thinking he was leaving me destitute, when in reality, I owned the building where he went to work every day. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through the house, touching the furniture Thomas had built, the bookshelves, the kitchen table, the rocking chair by the window. I looked at our wedding photo on the mantel. I was 24, he was 26, both of us so young and full of hope. Where had we gone wrong with David? When did he become someone who could abandon his mother so callously? The next morning, I called Lawrence Mitchell, the attorney whose name was listed on all the documents. He had been at Thomas's funeral, had offered condolences, and his card. I hadn't thought much about it then. Mrs. Hayes, he said warmly when I called, I've been expecting your call. Thomas told me you'd reach out when you were ready. Mr. Mitchell, I found the documents. I need to understand what all this means. Of course, can you come to my office today? We have much to discuss. His office was downtown, in one of those old buildings with marble floors and brass fixtures. Mr. Mitchell was in his 60s, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. He invited me to sit and spent 2 hours explaining everything. Mrs. Hayes, your husband was a remarkable man. He started with nothing and built an empire through innovation and smart investments. You are now worth approximately $12 million, including the tech company, the vacation properties, the commercial building, and various stock portfolios. But how did David manage to sell the cabin? It was in both our names. That's where things get complicated. Your son obtained a power of attorney document. Do you remember signing anything about 3 months ago? I thought back. Yes, David had brought me some papers right after Thomas died. He said they were for the funeral home, for insurance claims, for transferring titles. I had been so devastated, so lost in grief, that I signed everything without reading. How foolish I had been. He used that power of attorney to sell your cabin. However, and this is important, he didn't realize that the cabin is part of a larger property trust. He only sold the structure, not the land it sits on. The land is protected in Thomas's trust, which you control. We can nullify that sale easily. What about the workshop? Same situation. He sold the building but not the land. And more importantly, he sold equipment that contained your late husband's patented technology. That's intellectual property theft. We can pursue legal action if you wish. For a moment, I felt a surge of anger. I wanted to call David right then, tell him what a fool he'd been, expose his betrayal. But then I remembered something Thomas used to say. The best lessons are the ones that teach themselves. Mr. Mitchell, I said slowly, I don't want to pursue legal action yet. I want to do this differently. Can we get the cabin back without David knowing I'm involved? He studied me for a moment, then smiled. Mrs. Hayes, I think I understand what you're planning. Yes, we can handle this discreetly. What else do you need? I need full control of all my assets, especially Hayes Innovations and the commercial building where David works, and I need to know about his financial situation. That I can arrange. Give me 2 weeks. I left his office feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Not happiness exactly, but purpose. My son had tried to dispose of me, to erase me from his life. Now he was going to learn that actions have consequences. Over the next 2 weeks, I developed a routine. On the outside, I was the grieving widow everyone expected. My neighbor Patricia would bring me casseroles and ask how I was managing. Oh, you know, Patricia, taking it one day at a time. David is moving to Seattle, so I'll be all alone. Patricia would pat my hand sympathetically. That boy should be ashamed, leaving his mother like this. If you need anything at all, you know where to find me. These conversations happened again and again. The mailman, the lady at the grocery store, the pharmacist. Everyone saw me as the abandoned elderly woman, and I let them. But in private, I was busy. Mr. Mitchell called with updates. We recovered the cabin. The buyers had no idea the sale was fraudulent and were grateful to get their money back. We secured the workshop and all of Thomas's patents. And then Mr. Mitchell discovered something very interesting about David. Mrs. Hayes, your son has significant debt. He and Jessica have been living well beyond their means for years. Credit cards, a car loan for Jessica's luxury SUV, a second mortgage on their condo. They're drowning. How much? About $180,000. And here's the critical detail. They used David's employment contract as collateral for some of these loans. But they didn't realize that building where he works? You own it. And technically, as the majority shareholder of Hayes Innovations, which is his company's biggest client, you have significant leverage over his employment. The pieces were falling into place perfectly. David had sold my property to fund his escape to Seattle, probably hoping to outrun his debts. But he was about to discover that you can't outrun consequences. Mr. Mitchell, I need you to do something else. I want you to investigate this assisted living facility they chose for me. 3 days later, he called back. His voice was tight with anger. Mrs. Hayes, that facility is barely above a nursing home. The reviews are terrible. Reports of neglect, poor food, inadequate medical care, and the cost? They'd be taking $3,000 a month from your Social Security and pension, leaving you with almost nothing. Meanwhile, David listed himself as your financial guardian, giving him control of your remaining assets. So that was the plan. Warehouse me in a substandard facility, take control of whatever money they thought I had, and move across the country to start fresh. My own son. The baby I had nursed, the child I had driven to soccer practice, the teenager I had helped with homework, the young man whose wedding I had paid for. This was how he repaid me. I sat in Thomas's old chair, the one by the window where he used to read the newspaper every evening, and I made my decision. I wasn't going to just get revenge. I was going to teach David the most important lesson of his life. 2 weeks after his initial call, David phoned again. His voice sounded strained. Mom, hey, so there's been a complication with the Seattle move. Oh? What kind of complication, honey? The job fell through. Some issue with the company's funding. So we're staying here, actually. I see. Yeah, it's probably for the best. Listen, about that assisted living place, maybe we should hold off on that. You could stay in the house for now. That's very generous of you, David. And Mom, about the cabin money, we might need to borrow some of it back. Just temporarily. We have some unexpected expenses. There it was. The cracks were already showing. What kind of expenses? Just some bills, nothing major. Can we come by this weekend to talk about it? Of course, sweetheart. You're always welcome here. When Saturday came, David and Jessica arrived around noon. I hadn't seen them in person since Thomas's funeral. David looked tired, older somehow. Jessica looked immaculate as always, but there was tension around her eyes. I had made lunch, sandwiches, and homemade soup, just like I used to when David was growing up. We sat around the kitchen table, the same table where we'd had 1,000 family meals. "Mom, you look good," David said, though his eyes darted around nervously. "Thank you, dear. I've been keeping busy." Jessica cut in, her voice sharp. "Mrs. Hayes, David mentioned you might be able to help us with a short-term loan. We had some unexpected expenses." "What kind of expenses?" "That's not really important. The point is, we gave you $45,000 from the cabin sale. We just need to borrow $30,000 back, temporarily." I took a sip of my tea. $45,000? Is that what you think the cabin was worth? "Well, we had to sell it quickly, so we took the best offer," David said defensively. "And the workshop?" "That was separate. We got $15,000 for the equipment, so they had given me $45,000 out of what they thought was $60,000 total." How generous. They had kept $15,000 for themselves and given me the rest, probably thinking it would last me a year or two in that horrible facility before they could claim my Social Security too. "I see. And you need $30,000 back?" "Just a loan, Mom. We'll pay you back once things stabilize." I set down my teacup carefully. "Things will stabilize?" "David, tell me honestly. How much debt are you in?" His face went pale. Jessica's eyes flashed with anger. "That's none of your business," she snapped. "Actually, Jessica, it is my business. Because you're asking to borrow my money. Money from selling my property. So I think I have the right to know where it's going." "We're fine, Mom," David said quickly. "Just a few credit cards. Nothing we can't handle." "Is that why you were moving to Seattle? To escape your creditors?" Silence. Heavy, uncomfortable silence. "Who told you that?" Jessica demanded. "Nobody had to tell me. I'm not stupid, Jessica. Did you really think I wouldn't figure out what was going on?" David looked like he might cry. "Mom, we made some mistakes. Some investments that didn't pan out. Jessica's business idea that needed funding. You thought you'd sell everything I had, put me in the cheapest facility you could find, take control of my finances and disappear to Seattle. Is that about right?" "It wasn't like that," David said weakly. "Then what was it like? Explain it to me." Jessica stood up. "You know what? We don't need this. We don't need her judgment, David. Let's go." "Sit down, Jessica," I said quietly. Something in my tone made her hesitate. "You came here asking for money. The least you can do is let me finish." She sat down slowly. Her jaw clenched. "David, do you remember when you were 12 and you stole $20 from my purse to buy video games?" He nodded miserably. "Your father made you return the games, apologize, and work off the debt by doing extra chores. Do you remember what he told you? He said actions have consequences." "That's right. He said that when you make a mistake, you don't run away from it. You face it, you fix it, and you learn from it. Mom, I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry we sold the cabin. I'm sorry about everything. But we're desperate. We need help." And there it was. My son, finally showing a crack in his armor. Finally admitting he needed his mother. But I wasn't ready to save him yet. Not until he learned the full lesson. "I can't lend you the money, David." "What?" "Why not? Because enabling you now would be the worst thing I could do. You need to figure this out on your own." Jessica exploded. "Are you kidding me? After everything we've done for you, all those visits after Thomas died, all those phone calls checking on you, and this is how you repay us? Everything you did for me? Or everything you did to gather information so you could rob me more efficiently?" Her face went red. "How dare you? How dare I? You tried to put me in a facility with documented cases of neglect. You were planning to take control of my finances. You sold my husband's workshop, the last place I had to remember him, and you have the audacity to act offended?" David put his head in his hands. "We'll lose everything, Mom. The cars, the condo, everything. Then you'll learn what it's like to start over, like your father and I did, like millions of people do every day." They left shortly after that. Jessica slammed the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. I sat in the sudden quiet, my heart pounding. Patricia knocked on the door 10 minutes later. "Margaret?" I heard yelling. "Are you okay?" I let her in and made her tea. "David came to ask for money. Did you give it to him?" "No." She studied me carefully. "There's something different about you, Margaret. You seem, I don't know, stronger somehow. I'm tired of being taken advantage of, Patricia, even by my own son." Over the next month, I watched David and Jessica struggle. Through Patricia's network of neighborhood gossips and my own discreet inquiries, I learned they were desperately trying to sell their furniture, Jessica's jewelry, anything of value. David took a second job delivering food at night. Jessica had to return her luxury SUV and get a used sedan. They stopped going out to restaurants. Their social media, which used to be full of vacation photos and expensive dinners, went silent. Patricia kept me updated with a mix of concern and schadenfreude. I saw Jessica at the discount grocery store yesterday. She looked exhausted, no makeup, hair in a ponytail. I almost didn't recognize her. Part of me felt guilty. He was my son, after all. But then I'd remember his cold voice on that phone call, and my resolve would harden. Mr. Mitchell called with an update. "Mrs. Hayes, David's employment is under review. Hayes Innovations is considering ending their contract with his company due to some quality issues. If that happens, he'll likely be laid off." Quality issues? Yes. Apparently some of the precision tools they've been using don't meet aerospace standards. Tools that were manufactured using your late husband's patents, which were sold without proper authorization. Thomas's patents. David had sold equipment that didn't belong to him, and now it was coming back to haunt him. What happens if he's laid off? Given his debt load, he'll probably have to declare bankruptcy. He and Jessica would lose the condo, the cars, everything. Rock bottom, that's where David was headed. And maybe that's exactly where he needed to go. 6 weeks after our confrontation, David showed up at my door alone. It was raining, and he was soaked. He'd clearly walked there. "Mom, can I come in?" I made him coffee while he dried off with a towel. He sat at the kitchen table looking small and broken. "Jessica left me," he said quietly. "She said she didn't sign up for this. She moved back in with her parents. I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you, though?" He looked up at me with red eyes. "Are you really sorry, or is this what you wanted?" "David, what I wanted was for my son to love me, to respect me, to not treat me like garbage the moment I became inconvenient." I know, and I'm so sorry, Mom. I don't have any excuses. I was selfish and stupid and greedy. Jessica, she convinced me that you were going to be a burden, that we needed to secure our future, but the truth is, I was scared. Scared of what? Scared of ending up like you and Dad, working hard your whole lives and having just enough. I wanted more. I wanted the fancy car and the nice condo and the expensive restaurants, and I thought selling the cabin would give us a shortcut. There are no shortcuts, David. Your father and I worked for everything we had. We were happy because we earned it together. I know that now. I lost my job yesterday. The company lost a major contract, and I was the first one they let go. We're losing the condo. I'll probably have to declare bankruptcy. He started crying. Not the angry tears of a frustrated adult, but the helpless tears of a child who's realized he's made a terrible mistake. I destroyed everything, Mom. My marriage, my career, my home. And worst of all, I destroyed my relationship with you, the only person who actually loved me. I reached across the table and took his hand. David, look at me. He lifted his tear-stained face. I do love you. That's why I'm not going to rescue you from this. What? If I give you money now, you won't learn anything. You'll just think there's always someone to bail you out when you make bad choices. But I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have anything. You have me. You can stay here, in your old room. But there are conditions. Anything. I'll do anything. You're going to get a job. Any job. You're going to work, save money, and pay off your debts yourself. You're going to learn the value of hard work and sacrifice. And you're going to earn back my trust through actions, not words. Okay, yes, thank you, Mom. He moved back home the following week. It was strange having him there, this 40-year-old man sleeping in his childhood bedroom with the old posters still on the walls. He got a job at a hardware store and took evening shifts at a warehouse. I watched him leave early in the morning and come home late at night, exhausted. It reminded me of when Thomas and I were first married, working 2 jobs each to save for our future. One evening, about 3 weeks after he'd moved in, David came home to find me making dinner. "Mom, I met someone at the warehouse today, Bill Henderson. He said he knew Dad from the furniture business." "Bill?" "Oh yes, they were good friends. He told me something I didn't know. He said Dad used to work 16-hour days when I was little. That you both did, to pay for my soccer league and summer camps and college savings. We did what we had to do, but I never appreciated it. I thought you were just, I don't know, ordinary, living an ordinary life. I was embarrassed when my friends came over and saw our old furniture and your old car. And now? Now I understand that old furniture was built with Dad's hands. That old car got you to 2 jobs every day. There was nothing ordinary about it. It was love. It was all love, and I was too stupid to see it. I had to turn away so he wouldn't see my tears." 3 months after David moved back home, Mr. Mitchell called me to his office. "Mrs. Hayes, it's time. Your son has learned humility. He's working hard, paying his debts slowly, living within his means. I think he's ready." "Ready for what?" "Ready to know the truth. That's what you wanted, wasn't it? Not revenge, but education. And he's been educated. The question is, what do you want to do now?" I thought about Thomas, about what he would want. "Mr. Mitchell, I want you to arrange a meeting. It's time David learned everything." The meeting was scheduled for a Friday afternoon. David thought he was coming with me to discuss some paperwork about Thomas's estate. When we walked into Mr. Mitchell's conference room and David saw all the documents spread across the table, he looked confused. "Mom, what's going on? Sit down, son. There are some things you need to know." Mr. Mitchell began explaining. Thomas's investments, the vacation properties, the tech company, the commercial building. With each revelation, David's eyes grew wider. "Wait, you're saying Dad owned a tech company? Your father was an innovator, David. Every tool he invented, he patented and licensed. He built a multi-million-dollar company from his workshop. And the cabin? I own the entire property development. 12 vacation homes, all generating rental income. But how? You and Dad lived so modestly." I thought. "You thought we were barely getting by," I finished. "That's what your father wanted you to think. He didn't want you to grow up entitled or lazy. He wanted you to earn your own success. So when I sold the cabin, you sold a structure I owned. The sale was fraudulent. I got it back within 2 weeks." David's face went through a series of expressions: shock, disbelief, realization, and finally, something that looked like relief. "You knew. All this time while I was struggling, while Jessica left me, while I was working 2 jobs, you knew you could help me." "Yes. Why didn't you?" "For the same reason your father didn't tell you about the money. Because you needed to learn what it means to work, to struggle, to appreciate what you have. If I had rescued you immediately, you would have learned nothing." He was quiet for a long moment. "The assisted living facility. You knew about that too?" "Yes, it was a terrible place. You were going to warehouse me there, take control of my finances, and run away to Seattle. I'm so ashamed. You should be. But shame isn't enough. What matters is what you do now." "What do you mean?" Mr. Mitchell slid a document across the table. "Your mother has decided to offer you a position at Hayes Innovations. Starting salary, $45,000 a year. Entry level, you'll be working in quality control, the department that uses your grandfather's patents. But I don't know anything about precision tools or aerospace engineering." "Then you'll learn," I said. "Just like your father learned, just like I learned, just like anyone who wants to build something real. And the debt? You'll pay it off yourself, from your salary. It'll take years, but you'll do it, and when you're done, you'll have earned the right to move up in the company, if you prove yourself." David looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in decades. It wasn't the entitled demand of a spoiled son, but the genuine gratitude of a man who'd been given a second chance. "Why are you doing this, Mom? After everything I did to you? Because you're my son. And because your father would want me to give you the opportunity to become the man he always believed you could be. But David, this is your last chance. If you squander this, there won't be another." He started working at Hayes Innovations the following Monday. I heard from the managers that he was punctual, hardworking, and humble. He asked questions, took notes, and stayed late to learn. 3 months in, he came home excited. "Mom, I figured out an improvement to the calibration process. It could increase accuracy by 3%. Bill Henderson from the warehouse, Dad's old friend, he's the senior engineer now. He said Dad would be proud." And for the first time since Thomas died, I felt genuinely happy. That weekend, David and I drove up to the mountain cabin together. It was the first time either of us had been back since Thomas's death. The trees were the same. The creek still burbled past the deck. The mountain still stood sentinel in the distance. We sat on the swing Thomas had built, looking out at the sunset. "I want to apologize properly," David said. "Not just for selling the cabin, but for all of it. For being ungrateful. For not appreciating everything you and Dad gave me. For thinking I was better than your simple life, when really, your life was extraordinary and I was too blind to see it. I forgive you, son." Just like that? Just like that? But forgiveness doesn't mean I'll forget. It means I'm choosing to move forward with you instead of staying angry. I don't deserve you, Mom, probably not, but we rarely get what we deserve. We get what we make of the chances we're given. A year later, David had paid off half his debt. He had been promoted to junior engineer. He met someone, a teacher named Rachel, who drove a used car and packed her lunch. She reminded me of myself at that age. They started dating, and when he brought her to Sunday dinner, I saw something in David I hadn't seen in years. Contentment. He wasn't trying to impress her with things he couldn't afford. He was just being himself, and that was enough. Jessica, I heard through the neighborhood gossip network, had married a wealthy older man and moved to California. I wished her well, truly. She had been a symptom of David's disease, not the disease itself. Patricia came over for tea one afternoon. "Margaret, I have to know. When did you decide to help David?" "When I saw him trying. Not just working to pay bills, but actually learning, growing, changing. You could have told him the truth immediately, saved him all that suffering. Patricia, if I had, he would have learned that there's always a safety net, that actions don't really have consequences, that Mommy will always fix everything. Instead, he learned that consequences are real, that work matters, and that the only person who can truly save you is yourself. You're a wise woman, Margaret Hayes." "No, I'm just a woman who learned from a wise man. Thomas taught me that love isn't always soft. Sometimes it's tough, sometimes it lets people fall so they can learn to stand on their own." On the second anniversary of Thomas's death, David and I went to the cemetery together. We brought flowers and stood by the gravestone. "Dad, I'm sorry it took me so long to understand what you were trying to teach me," David said quietly. "But I get it now. I finally get it, and I'm going to make you proud." I felt Thomas's presence then, as clearly as if he were standing next to me. I heard his voice in my mind. "You did good, Maggie. You taught him what I couldn't. I'm proud of you both." Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.